Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself slipping back in time, hundreds of years, to the heart of the Middle Ages. The sun has just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of fading gold and deep purple. Slowly, that last line of light vanishes, and the world around you is swallowed by shadow. There are no glowing lamps along the streets, no warm electric bulbs inside homes, no buzzing neon signs. In this time, when the sun goes down, true darkness arrives. Thick, heavy, absolute. For the medieval villagers, this was the moment when the familiar became strange. The wooden houses you knew by day turned into looming silhouettes. The dirt roads leading between farms and fields seemed endless, vanishing into black nothingness. The forests at the edge of town whispered with sounds you could not see: rustling leaves, snapping twigs, the low growl of animals that prowled after dusk. What lived beyond your candle's glow was uncertain, and in that uncertainty lay fear. Inside most homes, people hurried to prepare before the night fell completely. Families would light their hearth fires or set a single candle burning, careful to conserve wax or oil. These flames were precious, for once they were gone, there was no easy way to push back the darkness. A medieval night without fire was like standing in an endless void. And so, households gathered close, children tucked under blankets, elders telling stories to keep minds distracted from the dangers outside. But what lay beyond those wooden doors and barred shutters? In towns, the darkness invited thieves and criminals. Shadows were their allies, cloaking them from watchmen and guards. In villages, wolves potted silently near sheep pens, their eyes gleaming faintly in the night. And in the countryside, travelers unlucky enough to be caught after sundown faced lonely roads filled with unknown terrors. Some real, some born from the imagination. Because without light, every noise became louder, every shadow deeper, every whisper more threatening. This darkness was not just physical. For medieval people, it was also deeply spiritual. Night was believed to be the time when evil spirits wandered more freely, when witches worked their spells, when the devil himself might move unseen. The church often warned of the dangers of venturing out after dark, and so many learned to fear the hours between sunset and dawn as much as they respected them. And yet, in this very darkness lay a strange kind of beauty. For those brave enough to step outside and look upward, the medieval night sky was dazzling. Without city lights to block it, the heavens stretched endlessly, filled with stars so bright they cast faint shadows on the earth. The moon became a silent companion, its glow guiding shepherds, hunters, and travelers. Though dangerous, the night also connected people to mystery, to wonder, and to a world far bigger than themselves. Still, most people chose safety over wonder. They closed their doors, fastened wooden shutters, and prayed that the night would pass quickly. For them, night was a reminder of vulnerability, of how fragile human life could be without light. Welcome to Life in the Middle Ages. Tonight, we're going to look at what life was like when the sun went down and darkness fell. It should be noted that in the Middle Ages, the duration of daylight hours varied depending on the season. During the summer months, the days were longer, lasting from around 4 a.m. to around 10 p.m. But as winter approached, days became shorter, sometimes lasting only from 7 a.m. to around 4 p.m. In the countryside, the land was farmed, using tools powered by the sun and the seasons, so peasants were accustomed to beginning their days early. They rose as soon as light touched their windows, ate a quick breakfast, and spent their days tending to crops, livestock, or the needs of their lord. Women might rise earlier to start fires, prepare meals, and complete household tasks before joining the men in the fields. Children, too, assisted gathering wood, collecting eggs, or helping with planting and harvesting. Afternoons were filled with chores, and evenings were for eating, drinking, socializing, and religious services. Many peasants attended vespers, a late afternoon prayer in the local church, and supper followed shortly after. This was a time for the community to gather, sharing news, discussing plans for the next day, or simply enjoying each other's company. Afterwards, families would retreat to their homes, lighting their lamps and settling in for the night. With tasks completed and the Lord's work done, it was time for rest. Families said their prayers, tucked their children into bed, and prepared to meet the darkness. Darkness fell rapidly in the Middle Ages. The sun dipped below the horizon and was gone, plunging all but the brightest scenes into gloom. Without electricity, gas, or even plentiful oil lamps, the hours after sunset were dim and uncertain. Homes relied on hearth fires, which flickered and smoked, providing more gloom than illumination. Outside, the lack of light intensified fears. Villagers shuttered their windows and doors, pulling tight against the night. Streets emptied. Homes grew silent, and the darkness pressed in on all sides. It was a world without neon lights, street lamps, or security cameras. The absence of light heightened the senses, making sounds seem louder and shadows deeper. For centuries, people believed that nighttime was when the veil between the worlds was thinnest. Spirits, demons, and witches roamed freely, preying on the unwary or seeking to tempt them. Superstitions ran rampant, turning the familiar into the frightening. But it wasn't all gloom and doom. Some found excitement in the night. Nobles and wealthy merchants might have lit their homes with candles or oil lamps, allowing for parties and entertainment long after sunset. Traveling musicians, storytellers, and actors would have made their evenings lively with tales of adventure, love, or the supernatural. For peasants, nighttime meant rest, family, and a break from the toil of the fields. After a hard day's work, returning home to the flickering lamplight and the warmth of family was a welcome relief. They ate, drank, sang, and told stories, making the best of the limited light and the lingering hours before bedtime. And then there was the moon. In the absence of electric light, the moon was a godsend. On a clear night, its silvery glow illuminated the landscape, making travel and outdoor activities possible. People would have marveled at its phases, celebrated its full glory, and even named their children after it. The moon was a source of magic and mystery, casting an ethereal light on medieval nights. As the darkness deepened, the medieval world grew smaller. Homes became fortresses, fires dwindled, and whispers turned to prayers. With the sun gone, fear and faith colored the night. Each shadow seemed to hold a threat. Each rustle might bring a wild animal. But through it all, the community held fast, drawing strength from shared darkness and the promise of dawn. So, in the end, the medieval night was a world unto itself. It was a realm of fears and superstitions, of flickering shadows and whispered prayers. It was a time when the absence of light brought the world closer, forcing people to rely on their senses, their faith, and each other. It was a reminder of life's fragility, but also of its resilience. And as the first hint of dawn touched the horizon, people knew that no matter how dark the night, the sun would rise again. Have you ever thought about what night was like before streetlights? Before police patrols? Let's travel back in time, to the medieval era, when the sun went down and true darkness fell. The medieval night wasn't just quiet. It was a world teeming with hidden dangers, both real and imagined. Imagine a village street, bustling during the day, now completely swallowed by blackness. The only sounds are the wind, a distant dog, and maybe footsteps. In the shadows, thieves and bandits waited. There were no police forces, just a lone night watchman with a flickering torch, his light a tiny island in an ocean of darkness. For anyone caught outside after dusk, like a merchant heading home with his goods, the risk was immense. Every dark corner, every rustle in the trees could be a threat, a sudden demand from the shadows, and everything you owned could be gone in an instant. It wasn't just travelers who were at risk. Even in their own homes, people weren't safe. Villagers would bar their doors and shutter their windows, but crude locks were no match for a determined thief looking to steal grain, tools, or livestock. People would lie in bed, listening to every creak and groan of their house, wondering if someone was trying to break in. And it wasn't only humans they had to fear. When the villages grew quiet, the wild world crept closer. The howl of a wolf echoing across the fields was a terrifying sound. It meant danger for their sheep and goats, and sometimes for people themselves. Wolves, hungry bears, and packs of stray dogs became masters of the night, reclaiming the land while humans huddled indoors. Inside the home, another danger lurked. Fire. Houses made of dry timber and thatch could go up in flames from a single stray spark from the hearth or a tipped candle. In tightly packed towns, A fire could spread from roof to roof, wiping out an entire neighborhood in minutes. Every night, families would carefully bank their fires, praying that the embers would stay contained until morning. But perhaps the most terrifying dangers were the ones they couldn't see. In a world without science, every strange noise, every sudden illness, was blamed on supernatural forces. People whispered stories of witches casting spells under the cover of darkness, of demons lurking in the woods, and of restless ghosts wandering the earth. To hear a knock at your door after midnight was a chilling omen. These fears kept people inside, clutching protective charms and praying for the sun to rise. So the medieval night was a complex web of threats, from the thief in the alley to the wolf in the forest, the spark in the hearth, and the ghost in the imagination. Each night was a trial to be survived, and every dawn was a sweet relief, bringing back the safety and order of the day. It was a world where darkness wasn't just an absence of light, but a living, breathing entity filled with peril. Thanks for journeying back in time with me. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories from history. See you next time. When the sun dipped below the horizon in the medieval world, life didn't just stop. It transformed. As darkness swept across the land, people retreated from the vast, uncertain world outside and turned inward, creating small pockets of warmth and light within their homes. It was a time for ritual, for connection, and for facing the quiet fears that the night always brings. Imagine a typical peasant's cottage. It's probably no bigger than your living room, with walls of wattle and daub and a thatched roof. In the center, a hearth glows, its flickering flames pushing back the shadows. This fire was the heart of the home, the only real source of light and warmth for most families. Forget bright candles or oil lamp stoves were for the rich. For the common person, it was the fire's smoky glow or nothing at all. Around this fire, the family would gather. The wooden shutters would be barred, the door bolt. These were flimsy defenses against the world, but they offered a sense of security. In the dim, wavering light, life took on a different rhythm. Women would be mending clothes, their fingers skillfully stitching in the near dark, while the slow hum of a spinning wheel filled the quiet air. Men might be repairing a broken tool or carving a piece of wood, their hands never truly idle. The children, lulled by the warmth and the low murmur of voices, would often be the first to sleep, tucked together on straw mattresses for warmth. They'd drift off as their parents whispered stories dailies of saints, brave knights, or local folklore. But even sleep was fragile. The scuttling of a rat, the moan of the wind, or a nightmare could easily wake them. For the adults, the night could feel endless. Without clocks, time was measured by the dying embers of the fire or the stars glimpsed through a crack in the shutters. Conversations were hushed, filled with village news, worries about the harvest, or rumors of bandits. Sharing these fears in the dark somehow made them smaller, more manageable. Between words, a deep silence would fall, broken only by the creak of the house or the crackle of the fire. Every noise from outside, a twig snapping, a distant howl, was amplified, a potential threat in the deep, dark quiet. Of course, in the stone halls of the nobility, the scene was different. Servants moved with beeswax candles that smelled sweet, not smoky. Tapestries kept the cold at bay, and feasts could last long into the night, filled with music and laughter. But even behind guarded walls, the same fundamental truth remained. The night was a time to withdraw, a time when the world outside felt dangerous and alone. Across all classes, the rhythm of life slowed to the pace of firelight. Prayer often marked the end of the day, with families murmuring blessings for protection against both earthly and supernatural threats. People even slept differently. Historians call it segmented sleep. They'd wake for an hour or two in the middle of the night, perhaps to pray, talk quietly, or just tend to the fire before returning to sleep until dawn. But let's not just imagine fear. Picture the intimacy of it all. Families huddled close, sharing body heat and quiet moments. Secrets whispered over dying embers. A mother humming a lullaby. A father speaking of his hopes for his children. This was the fabric of medieval night. It was a time of unease, yes, but also a time of profound human connection. Against the vast, swallowing darkness, They built small, enduring islands of light, holding them together until the sun rose once more. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past interesting, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories from history. We'll see you next time. When the last light of the sun slipped beyond the horizon, the medieval countryside sank into a blanket of shadows. But the night belonged not only to silence and fear, but also to faith, ritual, and community. Darkness wasn't merely an absence of light. It was a stage where the rhythm of bells, the prayers of monks, and the whispers of villagers played out like an ancient symphony. To understand medieval nights, we have to step gently into that world where church towers watched over villages like sentinels, and the faint glow of a candle was both a guide for the soul and a comfort against the endless dark. The church bell was the very heartbeat of the medieval town. Its deep tolls, echoing across fields and winding streets, divided the hours, reminded people of their duties, and called both rich and poor to prayer. In the evening, when doors were bolted and shutters drawn tight, the bell marked complete the final prayer of the day. For villagers listening from their cottages, the bell wasn't just sound, it was reassurance. A sign that even as the world sank into blackness, God's presence endured. Imagine lying on a straw mattress, the fire reduced to embers, and from across the fields comes the low, rolling note of the bell. Each tone lingered in the cold air, telling you that though darkness was near, faith was nearer still. Monasteries and convents were the true guardians of the medieval night. Monks and nuns followed the liturgy of the hours with a devotion that pierced the silence. Long after villagers had gone to bed, monks would rise at midnight for matins, gathering in candlelit halls, their chants echoing beneath vaulted stone ceilings. The flicker of tallow candles cast moving shadows, the light dancing like fragile stars against the gloom. They sang not to chase away the darkness, but to sanctify it. Their voices deep, steady, unwavering rose and fell in harmony, weaving through the cold air like threads of hope. To hear such chanting in the still of night must have felt like hearing the earth itself pray. In the villages, the church was more than a place of worship. It was the center of community. By day, it was a hub of life, and by night, its shadows stretched across the homes like a protective arm. After evening prayers, villagers might linger in hushed groups, sharing news or stories. In colder months, many would gather at the local inn for warmth, ale, and companionship. There, the fire crackled. Mugs of weak beer were passed around, and telesum true, many embroidered with superstition and folded in the smoke-filled air. The inn was a kind of secular chapel, where laughter and gossip kept despair at bay. Superstition and faith were seamlessly intertwined in the medieval night. To sleep near a churchyard was to rest close to the bones of ancestors, but also close to the whispers of spirits. Villagers believed the souls of the restless dead sometimes wandered after sunset, seeking prayers or release. Stories spread of candles flickering in cemeteries with no living soul nearby, or of bells tolling softly without a hand to pull the rope. To the medieval mind, these were not just fancies, but warnings, reminders that the veil between worlds thinned at nightfall. This is why so many slept with rosaries beneath their pillows, and why crucifixes hung above their hearths. Prayer was a shield against the unseen. Inside monasteries, the discipline of night carried its own sacred rhythm. The silence between chants was as holy as the chants themselves. The scrape of sandals on stone, the rustle of woolen robes, the faint crackle of a candle, these were the sounds of devotion. Nuns in convents also rose for vigils, their voices offering gentle hymns to the night. This may seem severe to us now, but to them, it was a form of harmony with the cosmos. The medieval person saw night not as a void to endure, but as a moment to commune with God, angels, and saints. For villagers outside the cloister, night was also softened by shared family rituals. Families prayed together, kneeling on dirt or wooden floors, whispering blessings over their children. Mothers would tell their little ones to imagine angels standing at each corner of their bed, keeping watch until dawn. Fathers, weary from the fields, would recite the Pater Noster or Ave Maria, their voices a low and steady lullaby made of faith. In a world so fragile, prayer was one of the few things no thief, wolf, or sickness could steal. The church bell's roll stretched far beyond just prayer. It was also a warning system. A sudden, frantic toll at night could mean fire, an attack, or some other calamity that demanded everyone awake. The same sound that comforted could also send shivers down their spines. Yet even in warning, it united people. Doors would fly open. Neighbors would run to help, guided by the peal of the bell. In this way, the church remained the unbroken thread connecting every household and every life in the village. Pilgrims traveling by night often sought refuge near churches. The stone walls provided not only shelter but a sense of safety against the unknown. Many churches offered sanctuary, where a traveler could sleep near the threshold, trusting the sanctity of the building to shield them. Imagine a lone traveler arriving at a village church after hours stumbling through moonlit paths, even to rest against the cold stone, beneath the shadow of a holy place, brought comfort. Faith didn't always provide warmth, but it gave courage, and courage was as precious as bread. In larger towns, church bells created a communal rhythm that dictated the night. They marked not only prayers, but also curfews. The ringing of an evening bell told people to return home, shut their doors, and avoid the dangers of the streets. This was a sound of discipline, but also of care. And when the morning bells rang, announcing dawn, it was as if the night had been conquered once again. Each sunrise felt like a small resurrection, a promise that darkness had not prevailed. Legends and stories grew around these nightly rhythms. Some believed angels joined the monks in their chants, their invisible voices harmonizing with human ones. Others whispered of demons lurking just beyond the church walls, silenced only by the sacred sound of the bells. The medieval imagination was rich, and the night fed it like fertile soil, whether born of truth or fear. These stories bound communities together, offering both warning and hope. The medieval night was both fragile and profound. Fragile, because a single candle could end in disaster. A single thief could bring ruin. And profound, because in that fragility, people found strength in their community and in their faith. The church, with its bells, vigils, and rituals, was the anchor. It gave rhythm to the chaos, meaning to the silence, and comfort against the vast, unknowable darkness. In the quiet hours when the wind rattled the shutters or a child stirred from a bad dream, there was always the memory of the bell, the whisper of a prayer, and the warmth of a shared faith holding them close until the welcome light of dawn. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the medieval night. If you've enjoyed this glimpse into the past, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories. Until next time, stay curious. When the last glimmer of sunlight vanished from the horizon and the medieval countryside sank into its deep blanket of shadows, the night wasn't just a time for silence and fear. It was a time for faith, for ritual, and for community. In that world, darkness wasn't merely an empty void. It was a vast, dark stage where the rhythms of church bells, the prayers of monks, and the quiet whispers of villagers played out like an ancient symphony. The heartbeat of any medieval town was its church bell. Its deep, resonant tolls echoed across fields and through winding streets, marking the hours and calling everyone, rich or poor, to prayer. In the evening, as doors were bolted and shutters drawn tight, the bell would ring for Complenda, final prayer of the day. Imagine lying in your small cottage on a straw mattress, listening to that low, rolling note vibrate through the cold air. It was more than just a sound. It was a profound reassurance that even as the world went dark, faith was always near. Monasteries and convents were the true guardians of the night. Long after the villagers were asleep, monks would rise at midnight for their prayers, in halls lit only by the flicker of tallow candles. Their chants would rise and fall in harmony, weaving through the cold stone arches like threads of hope. They didn't sing to chase the darkness away, but to sanctify it, to fill it with holiness. To hear that sound in the dead of night must have felt like hearing the earth itself praying. The church was also a place of gathering. After evening prayers, villagers might linger in hushed groups, sharing news or stories. On colder nights, many would gather at the local inn for warmth, ale, and companionship. The inn was a kind of secular chapel, where laughter and stories kept the despair of the long, dark nights at bay. When the doors were finally barred, silence would fall again, leaving only the watchful sound of the distant church bell. Superstition and faith were woven together. Villagers believed the souls of the restless dead might wander after sunset, Candles were said to flicker in empty cemeteries, and bells were rumored to toll without a hand to pull the rope. So, people slept with rosaries under their pillows and crucifixes over their hearths, murmuring prayers like shields against the unseen. Inside the monasteries, the silence between the chants was as holy as the chants themselves. The scrape of sandals on stone, the rustle of woolen robes, these were the sounds of unwavering devotion. For the common people, simple family rituals offered comfort. Parents would whisper blessings over their sleeping children, telling them to imagine angels standing guard at each corner of their bed. In a fragile world, prayer was one of the few things that no sickness or thief could ever steal. The church bell also served as a warning. A sudden, frantic toll at an unexpected hour meant fire or attack. The same sound that offered comfort could also send a chill down your spine. Yet even in that alarm, it united people. Doors would fly open, and neighbors would rush out, guided by the bell, to face the danger together. The medieval night was both fragile and profound. People found strength in their community and their faith. The church, with its bells, its vigils, and its rituals, was the anchor that gave rhythm to the chaos and meaning to the silence. And so, as those long ago people endured until morning, may you also drift through your night feeling safe and at peace until the light of a new dawn greets you again. As we close this journey into the medieval night, let us linger a little longer in its shadows. Imagine, just for a moment, those centuries long past, when the setting sun marked the beginning of a world transformed. The familiar became strange, the safe became uncertain, and the deep silence of the countryside pressed like a living weight against every shuttered home. To walk into the dark back then was to step into a realm without boundaries. Roads vanished into the void. Forests merged with the sky, and entire villages were swallowed whole by the absence of light. And yet, even in that profound darkness, life endured. Families found ways to fill the long hours, huddling close around the hearth, sharing stories, reciting prayers, or slipping into dreams that seemed to carry whispers from another world. The danger was real. Of course, wolves prowled the edges of the woods, thieves plotted in the shadows, and the threat of fire was ever present. But so too was an incredible resilience. People created rituals to protect themselves, clung to their faith, and leaned on one another for support. They discovered within themselves the courage to face night after night, often without knowing for sure if the morning would come. The medieval night wasn't just a time of fear. It was also a time of profound connection. It drew families together, gathered monks in candlelit choirs, and even wove dreams into prophecies that could shape the fates of kings. It was a constant reminder of human fragility, but also of human unity. For every menacing shadow, there was the comforting glow of a fire. For every fear, there was a whispered prayer. For every silence, there was the steady heartbeat of life, persisting through the dark. Tonight, in our own time, we are safe in a world brightened by streetlights, warmed by secure walls, and guided by the certainty that night will pass swiftly into dawn. But for those who came before us, the night was a genuine trial, and survival was a kind of victory. Their courage to endure, their faith to believe, and their hope to hold on through the blackest hours, all of these became the stepping stones to the world we know today. So as you drift into sleep, let these echoes of the medieval night wrap around you gently. Let them remind you that fear can be softened by faith, that darkness always gives way to dawn, and that even in the hardest of times, humanity has always found a way to hold on. May your dreams be calm, your rest be deep, and may you wake with a renewed gratitude for the light that fills your world. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed exploring the past with me, please consider subscribing to the channel for more adventures. Until next time, sleep well, dream deeply, and let history guide you into peace.